All right. Well, hello, everyone, and want to welcome you to today's webinar. This is going to be really one of the good ones that we have. We have friend of the community, Greg Mercer, who's here with us before. And Greg is always one of our more popular guests coming on. As everybody who I would think in the industry is aware of Greg Mercer, who is the founder and owner of Jungle Scout. And if we do have any, we're kidding earlier, I was telling him he's a rock star of our industry, if we do have such a thing in our industry. So that always is embarrassing when I say that to him, so that's what I enjoy about doing that. Kind of puts him on the spot. But anyway, Greg, welcome to the webinar today.
Mark, thank you very much for having me on. As always, it's always very fun to chat with you, and I'm sure we're going to provide a tremendous amount of value for everyone watching, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, good. Well, as people know, you're obviously made your stake in this industry doing Jungle Scout and helping people find products, but as all things evolve and the industry changes and grows, we've got a lot of things out now that if anybody who's a regular listener of either my webinars, podcasts, head of the community, or part of the community, I've been preaching for a long time that a big part of this industry is obviously finding products, but the other part and second stage of the business that not many people talk about is managing your business well, managing your business as a business person. And from somebody who's been in doing this a long, long time, managing your numbers, managing your P&L, your finances, all those types of things, people who don't do that or think are leaving a tremendous amount of money on the table. And I think that's something that you've been working on a lot lately, and I think you agree with that statement, introduce something new and going to be working on that. But before we jump into that, I just really wanted to get your thoughts maybe on what's going on in the industry. Where do you see some things going? What do you see maybe happening after all the post-apocalypse of the review changes and general stuff, and then we'll get right in and see if we can help some people learn how to better manage their business a little bit.
Absolutely. Sounds like a good plan. Real quick, just for those who don't know me, so yeah, my name's Greg Mercer. I started selling on Amazon about 4 years ago now, maybe even 5 years ago. I got into it just like a lot of people just because I was looking for a way to like quit my job. I used to work as an engineer, so I started selling on Amazon. I was able to scale up a pretty successful Amazon business. Then I started Jungle Scout, which I think a lot of you are familiar with it, but it is a product research tool to help you locate profitable products to sell on Amazon. And then after that, I've had this like strong entrepreneurial spirit, and I'll get all these requests all the time, like, Greg, I love Jungle Scout, but I wish there was a piece of software to do this or that, or I still have all these other pain points kind of in the area. So that's when Jungle Scout morphed into like a suite of tools for Amazon sellers to help them do different type of tasks for their Amazon businesses. So we'll kind of be talking a little bit about one of those today that I'm super excited about. But as Mark just kind of mentioned there has been a lot of changes lately in Amazon. Of course, at the beginning of October, Amazon got rid of the reviews in exchange for a discounted or a free product. I will say since then, I've launched I think I've launched 4 new products post October 3rd, and I have to say that they've all gone better than I had expected. It turns out that's probably not as big of a deal as what most people make it. It is much slower to get reviews. However, I've found that a lot of my products that I've launched today's the beginning of December, so my oldest product that I've launched post October 3rd is only like 2 months old, and that product now has like 50 or 60 reviews. So it's not that hard to get the social proof once you start getting the initial sales. I'll go ahead and address it because I know it's a common question is, like, what is your launch strategy now? And that is, I still do discounted products just to get the sales. I don't expect a request or anything that has to do with reviews. I'm just doing discounts in order to get sales. And then, as a lot of you know, Amazon, the products that are selling better, the ones that have the better sales velocity and conversion rate, then they rank better for your keywords, and then you'll start getting those organic sales. So, yeah, it is a little bit tougher to get those initial 10 or so reviews. However, it turns out it's not really that bad. It's still relatively easy to do. In my opinion, it's still like a tremendous opportunity. And since we're at the end of 2016, I'll give my predictions into the future. If I look into my crystal ball, that I still think the U.S. Amazon store is a tremendous opportunity. It's still not that competitive for like larger items or more expensive items. We are seeing more competition for the the lower priced small items. However, if you look hard enough, there's still plenty of niches that you can get into and make good money. Personally, I haven't started selling in Europe yet. However, I just did the paperwork for it 2 days ago. And in 2017, I'm going to expand into the UK, into Germany to start, and possibly other markets, because I do see a lot less competition over there. So maybe we can do another webinar in 6 months. I'll let you know how that's going for me. But from what I hear, I think those are tremendous opportunities as well.
Yeah, I agree on the Europe thing. We've been talking about that, even put a course out a while back on how to do that. And it's something that it's amazing. We get a little bit myopic on our views sometimes when if you find a product that works here, it's probably going to work in Europe. I think there's a lot more similarities than there are differences. There's certainly less competition. But I agree. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, without a doubt less competition over there. And Amazon actually just released like some statistics that if you combined all the EU stores, if you think of them as one store, there's just as much volume and traffic on those stores as there is in the U.S. store. Right. So they get like 100 million uniques a month in the U.S. store, and they get 100 million unique visits in all the EU stores combined. So if you're selling in all of those, it's essentially just as big of a marketplace now as what the U.S. store is. So you can like theoretically double your sales by expanding into all of the EU stores.
Are you thinking about Japan at all?
I would like to. I haven't started kind of like reading and learning a little bit about it. It seems like there's some, it's very doable. It seems like there's a few more kind of hurdles to get into it from what I understand.
There are, but the pluses is that they have a higher retail price market. They don't have the Walmarts and the things to drive prices down like what we do. And plus the fact that shipping from China to Japan is so close, the shipping costs are not what they are to come here to the Western world. So you've got a little bit more of a profit spread and again, less competition. So there are some obstacles, as you say, and this is obviously not the topic of today, but it's something that I think is something that people should be encouraged and looking into. And to piggyback on what you said about the launch strategy, I think too, after the initial shock, I'm hearing a lot of people reiterate kind of what you just said, where they've launched products and it's gone okay. It hadn't been the chicken little skies falling that many people have thought. So I'm very optimistic about 2017, and I agree that more expensive products, if you have the budget for it, it just eliminates that whole lower level of competition by people who don't have the budget to compete in that higher level. So less reviews needed, all kinds of things. So, I agree with you that. I mean, this is something, I've never thought this was a complicated business, but it's something that if you spend a little bit of time thinking, the things that and where things are going, I think are fairly obvious. So I agree with what you're saying there, but that's glad to hear your thoughts on that, because I think that's germane to a lot of people, and a lot of people you just got to focus on this. And I still, all the businesses have built up over the years and done, this is still, I think, the right place to be at the right time. So I feel very optimistic about where we're going.
Oh yeah, it's still like, if you compare this, to like other opportunities that there were maybe like a decade ago or something, it's like incredible how much like easier it is to like start a business like this and make it profitable and stuff, especially if you start comparing it to all the brick and mortar type businesses, right?
Oh, I mean, when I was in my mid-20s before the internet and started, and the only way you could expand was to build another brick and mortar store somewhere, and the fixtures, the build out, the 10-year leases. I mean, it could fail
so much
15 times here and get it right in the 16th time and still not be in $300,000 worth of debt. So,
right.
This is and again, this is where I guess I have the advantage of age. This is about the only thing I can think of as an advantage of age, but I can appreciate how hard it was compared to how easy it is now relative to the way it used to be. It's 1,000 times easier now than it used to be. But I'm glad I could just stick a toe in both worlds, because it does make me appreciate the days that I don't have to go work 7 days at a store, from 10 to 10 at night kind of thing. So, it's nice on holidays. You don't have to listen to Christmas music from the mall 12 hours a day. Little things, I guess. But Greg, one of the things I know, and part of the reason we're talking about, or to have you here today, is to talk about some new things you're working on, because finding products and things like that, we all have a pretty good idea now how to do that, and it's just a matter of effort. But again, I still think step 2 as this industry evolves is one of the main predictions, I think we're all going to get better at managing our products, whether that's through software, intuition, Excel files, whatever it is. But I know you've been working on some things like that for a bit. And I was just would invite you to just to tell us about it. Unless I kind of mess something up technically, I can switch the screen to you if
Yeah, if
that's
you could do that,
easier.
that'd be great.
So let me change the presenter. So if I lose something here, well, then we'll figure it out.
So yeah, one of the, there we go. All right, just let me know when you can see it, Mark.
All right, we're good.
All right, sweet. So one of our newest project at Jungle Scout and the Jungle Scout suite of tools is called Fetcher. So I'm going to give you a quick background of kind of like why we created this. One, for very selfish reasons, I created this because prior to Fetcher, so I at one point I had hundreds of products in Amazon because I was selling both wholesale and private label items. And even when you get like 2 or 3 products, it starts to be kind of difficult to understand which products are making you money once you factor in promotions and PPC and a lot of these kind of like sneaky fees that Amazon has and all this stuff. So at one point I had like this is before there was any kind of software to help this. It was like this like Mac Daddy of a spreadsheet. I had these macros and I would download different reports from Amazon. The macros would like import them into the spreadsheet. It was crude, but it got the job done well enough for me, but it took quite a bit of time to like do all this. So that was one of the reasons that I wanted to invent this. And then the other reason is because like all of our users were also expressing this. You know, if you only have one product, it's pretty easy to use Seller Central and kind of understand how much money you're making, losing, and so forth. But once you get into multiple products, it's like, okay, like, you know, I think I'm like cash flow positive at this point, but you know, a lot of people I don't think fully understand what they're getting charged fees for or how much PPC spend they really have or how much money they're losing from refunds or all these different things. So, and Seller Central doesn't help us out at all. Seller Central, I don't know if they do this on purpose because they kind of want to be like a little bit vague about it, but it's very hard to understand from Seller Central like how much money you're making or losing when it comes down to particular products. So that's how Fetcher was born. So Fetcher is a profit analytics application specifically for Amazon sellers. So this syncs up with your Seller Central account, and it automatically every hour pulls in all the new information. So it has all your new sales. If you gave promos, it shows you your pending orders. So if I scroll over this, it shows me I have 1 pending order. I actually ran out of stock yesterday, but if we look at 2 days ago, I still have I sold 14 units, 1 still pending, and then once they are shipped, it shows you that. If I kind of just I'll back up in the date range here a little bit, and also show you on a daily basis, it shows you how many promotional units you gave away. So if you gave away those products at a discount, then we'd see like on a day like this, okay, I had 6 promo sales, you know, 55 total. Of those 55, 6 were promos, so then I would have had 49 standard sales. So this makes it really easy to understand at a day's glance, like how much money you really made and like what the breakdown was from that, okay? So like a few things that I don't think people really, so, you know, like I talk to a lot of Amazon sellers and a lot of people say, they misinterpret or like misunderstand kind of how much money they're making, and the main contributors to this, the main factors for this is people aren't factoring in refunds. So let me look at, so this particular account only has 1 product. This is my Jungle Sticks account. So keep in mind if you have a whole bunch of products, this is going to show, you know, a whole bunch of graphs here. I'll list a lot of products, but this particular product has a relatively low return rate. It's 1.59%. However, if I look at some of my other accounts, some of my products actually have 5, 6, 7% return rate. A lot of those are like more complicated products that like break easier or maybe have more like quality control issues. But a lot of people don't factor in that normally when you return these items are returned, most sellers just lose out on the money. Like I know, like I normally do. I haven't found like a cost-effective way to like repackage these and try to resell them as used. So a lot of times that's just lost money. So a lot of people don't take that into account. They don't take into account a lot of Amazon's fees. So let me just look So this is just my dashboard, but if I go here, I see my costs in this pie chart, and let me look at, for instance, like my recurring fees here. So it's taking into account my subscription. That's like my monthly $40 a month to Seller Central. That's taking into account, I had to pay a disposal fee for them to trash some of my returns, and I was hit with $110 worth of storage fees during this particular time. I will say, like, again, this account only has one product. On bigger accounts, you'll often see quite a few more charges that I actually didn't even know existed. So this may only be like 1% or a few percent or whatever, but all this stuff kind of starts to add up once you have refunds, once you have these different fees and all this different kind of stuff. So it's good to understand, you know, which items you're getting charged those fees for. And how much they are, because on some of the lower margin stuff, that could be the difference whether you're making a profit on that or you're not, or maybe your profit's so small that it's not worth it for you to invest your cash in that particular product. So that's kind of the reason that Fetcher was born. So it gives you some really cool information. It also gives us you can of course just select like any date range here. I'll just do, let's see.
Greg, while you're in between things there, when you have multiple products, will it just show different graphs of each product so you can still identify the different products, or will it combine it or commingle it into one graph?
That's a really good question. So on this page right here, I'm on this product breakdown. So here, if I had a bunch of products, I would see a list of all of them here, and I could look at each one in particular, okay?
Good.
So when I'm looking at each one in particular, I can see how many units I sold, how many promos I had, my profit on this graph. I get all this information here, like my ROI, my margin, how many units I've sold during this time frame. So this is November 1st through December 7th. I sold 1,022 units. These are my costs, and this is my profit. And then, again, I can break this down and look at the different fees and kind of like how they're split up into, you know, like what my particular costs are.
Let me just interject something here. I really
go ahead.
Think about this is that everything is, all software is in the beginning. It takes a moment to get used to the setting and the layout and whatever else. A lot of the information is obviously in the Amazon dashboard, but to me, it's clunky. It's like it's by engineers for engineers. And for those of us who are not technical people, I just want to see a number. I want to see it clearly. I want to see it in the same place, and I want it presented pretty well. One of the things I really, really like about this is the interface and how it's presented. It's very simplistic because I don't care about being an analyst here. I want to see the numbers and make decisions. And it's laid out in a simplistic fashion. Ultimately, this makes it easier to manage your business, to make better decisions, and to make more money. So whether it's you or you paid somebody to do this, however it is, it's laid out by somebody who understands that versus and I love computer people, but bless their hearts, they make things more complicated than they need to sometimes. What I like about this is it's very simplistic, and simplicity is beauty. I mean, and beauty is what works. And I just, for those of us who are thinking about it, really, what's the purpose of this? Well, again, the purpose is to be able to better manage your business, and the easier that is, the more likely you are to do it.
Yep, that's a good point. We definitely spent a lot of time, put a lot of love into the user interface. We like drew up like a few different ones, and we asked different people like which ones are easier to understand, all this kind of stuff. So I'll definitely pass that along to the team. They'll be very excited to hear that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So we also have a breakdown on like a per product basis. So again, I have one product selected here, and this is all of our PPC spend and sales. And we can actually see some information that is not easily available in Seller Central, like, okay, how many, after they clicked my ad, how many sales did I have within 30 days, 7, 1 day. So you can do that, which is cool. And then this is like, in my opinion, this is like the biggest like missing piece of Seller Central is you can't see, for one, any one product. The only thing you can sort it by, like in like graph or like easy form, would be like by category. So they won't even let you pick out one product. And then if they are like, if you only have one product in the category, then you could select it. But when they do, they count like promotional sales as like the full amount of revenue. Like if I gave away a product at 80% off, they show me sales like that full amount, for like the
Well,
whole
that's why I
cost.
asked you earlier if you did it individually or commingle things, because that's really what I was
Right.
thinking in the back of my mind when I asked that. And it's a simple fact that you break this down individually allows you to make individual changes other than having to guess within the category.
Yeah, so they don't take that into account, and then they also don't factor in like like there's nowhere you can see like your sales minus cost for promos and PPC and fees. So it's very difficult in Seller Central, like I said, to like really understand like the margin and like the ROI like per product. So that was like the biggest challenge that sellers told us that they had, and we tried to fix with Fetcher. So so now your actual profit takes into account everything that potentially charge you fees. So actually, even if we go into like expenses, we have the ability to even enter expenses into here. Let me just move my thing. So I can even add in expenses here for, let's say, like I have staff, and you can either add these to a particular ASIN or to your company as a whole. So staff might be as a whole, but let's say warehousing. So like it costs me like a few dollars extra, for this particular product. The date that I realized this fee, you can add a subscription. I could say like, okay, it costs me $20 this day or this month for warehousing for this product. And then again, you would add it into that. Or if you want to say like, okay, I have some staff that they're not for one particular product, they're as my company as a whole. Maybe I pay them on the first day of each month $1,000, and then it takes that into account for like the company in the whole. So then if I look at like the P&L statement, it will have factored that in as my my profit and loss and different fees and expenses.
Greg, let me
as a whole.
interject here for a second. I'm kind of feel like I just want to take the mallet out and pound people over the head with this. But folks, I'm a fanatic. When I get up in the morning and after I read the news and get somewhat cognizant of what I'm doing, every single day, this is the first thing I do is check my P&Ls and sales and whatever else and the numbers of where I am. And if you have a good system, it makes it easy to do this. Whether you're using Excel sheet, whatever it is, I went through this when Greg showed me this earlier, but I really like how this puts this right in front of you so you can look at when you sit on a computer in the morning. Because I'm telling you, you don't look at things at the end of the month. You look at them before they happen so you can make adjustments before they happen, not after the fact. And again, what I was saying earlier, if the information is easy to get and access, you're more likely to make those good decisions because you've got good information in front of you. Business management is something I know I'm going to address heavily going into 2017. But folks, this is the second part of the equation. I'm just telling you, having this information in front of you allows you to, if we have time at the end, I'll tell a story of how somebody who taught me this made me a couple $100,000 the next year because I applied what they said. And I'm just telling you, this is the information that you need to go from that level to the next. I don't know.
Awesome.
I didn't mean to I just get excited because this is the kind of stuff. This is how you run a business. The Amazon business to this point is very much Wild West, loosey-goosey, just throw it out there and hope it works. And I hate running businesses that way. And I've made millions of dollars over the years by doing these simple things. And I just can't stress enough how this is how you run a business. This is how you run a real business anyway. So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just keep getting excited because I like to see good business management practices, I guess.
Right. I was tempted to, most people, myself included, are kind of protective of what products they sell in their business. I was tempted to show you like my normal account. This is a product that I did publicly, so it's not a big deal because I thought I was like managing it well, but after I actually hooked up Fetcher, I found out that like a couple of my products were actually, the margins were like in the single digits, wow. Whereas I thought they were like quite a bit better. But when you have like a whole bunch of products, it's fairly easy to do, even if you're trying to be pretty careful. Because I think I was forgetting about some of the refunds. Like, for instance, this line right here. Most people, they don't really like think to subtract like $500 each month as a loss because of the refunds, and just like all these other little things kind of add up, right?
Right.
Or same thing, like most people, Amazon shows you that you did $15,900 worth of sales. They don't remove that $300 of that because you gave discounts for the promos. So yeah, it's very true.
Well, this is like I said, I'm going to interject my story here. Maybe this is something that numbers alone will catch people's attention. Many of you know I started out in the clothing business, and I had retail stores and malls and things like that. The first year there, I think this was like 1990, I think, the first full year, I did like $300,000 in sales. And my gross profit, not my net, but my gross profit was 50%. So that's roughly, obviously, $150,000. Well, I had a guy come in, and he basically taught me business management. The things that software is doing, Greg's talking about now, is that he basically told me to watch your numbers. He taught me how to do this. To make a long story short, the next year I went to 72% gross profit and increased my sales because I was better at managing the business and all the other things that came from it. I went from $300,000 to $400,000 in sales. So that I can't remember whatever that calculates to be, but that's that's well over almost $200,000 in profit that I made in extra just because I learned how to manage a business. You're right. You start seeing little things that are side benefits that you didn't realize were going well, and things that are costing you money. It's like, oh man, you fix those things when you have the information in front of you, and you can't do it until you have an easy presentation. And this is nothing new, but to most Amazon sellers who don't manage their business like this is gold if you just mine it. Anyway,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Anyway.
The other good thing, and I'll just kind of tack on to that about tightly managing your finances, and even if you're not using Fetcher, even if you do a good job in an Excel sheet, that's fine. Software just makes it easier. If you have another system that works, you don't mind spending the time, that's perfectly cool too. The one thing that, since we're getting more and more users into Fetcher, and I talk to a lot of them, a lot of people will also say, again, the one always recurring theme is that that they make more money on some products and less money than they thought on other products, and or vice versa. The other really important thing that you can start to look at is okay, on these products that you're not making as much money, that your margins are low, would it be better to spend your cash in reinvesting in a new product that potentially has higher margins, as opposed to continuing to reorder a product that has really low margins? So I think that's one of the other things that people were starting to figure out a little bit better, that okay, this product that I'm only making 8% margin, 10% margin, 15% margin, and the reason I'm not scaling up more is because I don't have enough cash to keep reordering more and more products. So instead, why don't I stop reordering that one and order this product that's going to get me 30% margins?
I do a whole seminar on that called the inventory trap. It just as you're you reinvest, and then if you're not making the margins, all you're doing is spinning wheels.
Right.
You start to wonder, where's all my profit? I'm seeing sales, but no profit.
Yeah.
The other thing about all this too is that I think you're going to start to see lots of people start selling businesses as the industry matures, and you certainly aren't going to sell a business if you don't have good, valid numbers to show a potential seller. This is something you can hand a seller and say, here's the actual part of my business, other than having to have them guess. The more tangible information you have, the more valuable your business.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's kind of funny you said that. Some of the guys, there's a company called Empire Flippers. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yeah, we're doing a webinar with them next week, as a matter of fact.
Nice. They've sent a few sellers my way, or Fetcher's way, who were getting ready to sell their business and had pretty loosey-goosey books. They're like, why don't you import everything into Fetcher, and then we'll show that to the potential buyers, as opposed to kind of your spreadsheet that's not so accurate.
Well, think about it. Just the simple thing, we're talking about big money decisions. We're worried about 2 percentage points in an item and $200 a month. If you fed your information to this and you want to sell it, maybe you're able to sell your business for $250,000. The we're all defined by the big decisions we make, and they're all a combination of the little decisions,
Yeah.
So anyway, again, I'm sorry, I get excited. I'm just going to sit here and be quiet because I'm probably making this hard on you, but I just the important parts, I think, are showing software is one thing, but I think it's important to understand the bigger parts too.
No, I didn't have a particular agenda for it. I wanted to hop on here and kind of talk about with you some of the pitfalls that I've seen sellers have as far as managing their finances for their Amazon business. And I was going to give a quick rundown of here. The big picture of the webinar here, I kind of want to get across is the importance of managing the numbers well for your Amazon business. Not so much, like I said, if you do that on a spreadsheet, that's perfectly fine. Fetcher just makes it easier for you. But yeah, and I'm also happy to ask any questions that are in the chat box. Is there any that are relevant right
Well,
now? I can't see
obviously
it.
I've been talking and haven't been looking, but I can read those off to you. I mean, is there anything else you want to show on the software that, I see some
Uh,
things that you got inventory levels and some other things that I think are important
sure.
to know.
Yeah,
And
so I'll just do maybe a quick rundown of like a few different pages here. I got excited. I was kind of jumping around a little bit, but so on the dashboard here, this would be the combined um, data and information statistics for all your products combined. So like I said, this is just a demo account, so there's only one product. But if I had 10 products, then this would be my sales and cost, profit, margin for all of my products and my whole business combined, okay? It also just shows you at a snapshot your inventory levels and the rough days remaining. This is, if you are starting to get into a really big business and want to deep dive into like inventory management a little bit better, it would turn to something a little different. But this is kind of a snapshot and shows you, okay, if I had 100 units and I was averaging 10 a day, then I would have about 10 days remaining of inventory. Like I said, I just ran out of stock of this product yesterday, so that's why it's showing 0. And then this is just going to be your costs. Again, this is at a whole, a snapshot of your entire business and all of your products combined. All right. If we go to the sales page, this is going to compare all your products. So this is really valuable to show, like which products are your best sellers, and so forth, and like what percentage of your business is made up by that particular item sales. So again, there's only one product in this, but on my accounts that have 10 products or 100 products, this whole page you would see a bar of what percentage of your sales that particular product takes up, and then continued all the way down the page. So that's really nice to look at, to say like, okay, it gives you like a really nice like quick snapshot to say like, all right, I need to pay good attention to this, or this would be like my highest impact for maybe optimizing that particular listing and so forth. The expenses, you're going to have to manually input your cost of goods sold, so what it costs to get it from China or wherever you're ordering it from. The reshipping will be automatically imported, and what that is if you use the Amazon partner carriers and you pay for the shipping through Amazon. So normally, people would ship something from China or wherever else, like a freight forwarder, and then use Amazon to ship it UPS, or use their trucks to ship it from their freight forwarder or maybe their house or wherever else into their distribution centers. That will automatically be imported into reshipping. And then we went over other expenses a little bit earlier, that you can input any expenses you have here, maybe from software or staff or your garage or your phone or anything else into there. The product profitability, this is a really nice page. And again, this is going to compare all your products on how profitable they are. So the sales just gives you gross sales. It doesn't really take into account the profitability. So instead, on this particular graph, you would have all your products lined up here, and it would show you which ones are the most profitable. And again, it's really nice to compare your products like that, so you know like which ones would be the highest impact for you to optimize those, or which ones you want to make sure you don't run out of inventory on, or give a little more attention to. The refunds is really nice, so you can choose any particular time frame, and for all your products, you'll have a graph here that shows how many units were returned and the return rate of those units. So it takes into account, says, okay, during this time frame, there were, 1,000 units ordered. Of those, 103 were returned, so you have 1.58%, or I'm not sure how many I sold that time frame, but it gives you the return rate. And again, this is something that, like, unless you're really good with your numbers, like in Excel or whatever else, most people don't realize their return and refund rate for most of their products. Maybe you have a ballpark idea because you're like, oh man, I think that one gets returned a lot. But do you know whether it's 1% or 3% or 8%? Because if it's 8%, that starts to turn into a pretty significant amount of money that you're losing, if you have like 8% of returns. And again, it's kind of embarrassing to say, but I was surprised in some of my products on how like I thought I knew with some of my products, like, okay, yeah, I know that one gets returned a little bit more, but like some of my products are like at 1% and other ones are at 8%. It's like I knew I had a little bit more returns, but I would have thought maybe 2% or max 4%. Like I didn't realize that some of my products were getting returned at like 8%, which can be quite a bit.
Let me ask you
Um,
the most important question of all. After you created this
sure.
software and incorporated it into it and started learning things like what you're talking about and finding the unexpected things, and this is a point blank question, and I may throw you for a curve here, but how much money difference do you think you made, saved, created, however you want to phrase it, after you switched into the software?
Oh, tons. Yeah, it's hard to quantify, but tens or possibly even hundreds of thousands per year. My Amazon business is fairly large. We'll do like 6 million or something this year. So by moving by making small differences like that, it does significantly move the needle, like probably to the tune of over $100,000 a year,
Well,
to be able to help them make those little changes.
so yeah, would it be safe to say the normal person could expect a 10 to 15, maybe 20% difference in their profits?
I think so, by closely managing your numbers, without
Yeah.
a doubt.
Yeah.
I think most people probably don't, just because before it was like Seller Central made it so hard on you, but it
Well,
is.
I mean,
I mean, it's just
Greg,
a
I
lot
coach
easier.
a lot of people, and one of the first things, what's your conversion rate? And most people won't know, and I'll start asking a couple numbers, and they're either telling you by what their answers, whether they're managing their business or not, and then the follow-up calls with them after they start. It's much like what you just said. It's amazing how what I thought was going on in my business really wasn't going on in my business, and now that I can see it, I can fix it. Or I
Yep.
can address it. I can make it better. And it's just, I don't know. I get excited about all kinds of different things in business, but this is what separates people who have sales and people who make money.
Yeah. One thing I'll add about when you see it, you can address it. Like one of my products that had that 8% return rate. What I found was, and like I said, I kind of like knew this a little bit before. I just didn't understand like how bad the problem was, so I just didn't take the time to address it. But it was because a lot of people like misunderstood one error message that they were getting from it.
Mm-hmm.
So then in my autoresponder sequence for that, I made sure like on the first email to like address that right away, like why people get that error, what you have to do to change it, like
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing wrong. And then my next email of the sequence again, it kind of just like addressed it again. So after like understanding how bad that was, then I was able to like address it. And my way of doing it was I added like a kind of like a little infographic picture on the Amazon listing, and then I changed my email follow-up sequence to make sure that that was addressed. And it did it. You can see like a noticeable improvement. It went from like 8% to like, I think it's at like 5.5 now. So I can still, there's probably still I can do better, but I
Well,
just
that's
never
a
realized like how
significant
bad it
amount.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
large, and that's just huge. And again, it's just numbers are the language of business, and it just amazes me how many people don't manage their business the way they should. And I don't know, it sounds like maybe I'm on a crusade to help people do this. And again, because we get people in this industry who are starting, and it's just they don't see how much they're, as you say, not making, or either what they could enhance by making a few simple different decisions. And this is just a tool to be able to do that. So I just
Yeah,
can't stress enough how important I think this part of the business is, because I've seen it in my own business over the years and with other people as well.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if I just finish up on this real quick, this is like my favorite page, the product breakdown page. This is where I go. This is like instead of going to Seller Central now, this is where I go like 2 or 3 times a day, or to check how many sales I've had. I'm a little bit addicted to this. I've tried to get better at it, but I'm still guilty of probably 2 or 3 times a day.
Well,
um,
you're probably, most people do all more than that.
so this is where I go to see, like I said, updates about every hour, so you can see how many sales you've made so far that day. You can see, and again, it shows you your PPC spend and your sales, and just all this information on a breakdown on a product level basis. So you can select which product you have out of your list here, and you can look at that particular product and how many units that particular one sold you that day.
Greg, I'm just looking at this, and I told you, like, way back in 1990 when computers were starting to come into business and things like that. And I bought a software. It was a touchscreen computer. It did something very similar to this. It wasn't anywhere near this elaborate, but it was this in function. And I remember paid $9,000 for it, which in today's dollars is roughly $18,000 to $20,000. And I'm sitting here, and it was worth every penny. because it helped me go from that 50% to 72% gross margin by that next year. And because I actually started using it. I had it, but then didn't use it for a while. But anyway, it's one of those things where it's kind of important stuff, I guess. I'm getting a message here that says my audio is off for whatever reason. Greg, can you hear me? Greg, can you hear me? Greg, can you hear me? Greg, can you hear me?
Rolling and recording. I haven't got a message show otherwise, so I'm going to
Greg,
keep
can you hear me now?
Oh, I got you back now.
Sorry, man. I was just sitting there talking. All of a sudden, I get a little message that your audio was lost. And anyway, so I figured you would pick that up and go. So I figured you were in good shape. Anyway, that's the whole thing about GoToWebinar that annoys me to no end. Everything's going fine, and then you get lost there. But all right, so where did I miss?
I saw while we were lost, I went ahead and started looking at the questions. The last one says, can you view 12 months time in the P&L? And the answer is yes. So this is January 1st today. You can go back further. But yeah, you can look at your whole year in your P&L and yeah, your numbers for it. We can now import up to 2 years of previous data. So if you sign up for Fetcher today, it can import up to 2 years ago from today. So that's pretty nice to be able to look at your last year or the numbers from the last 2 years as well.
Okay, since we're on questions, I don't want to jump in. Is there one you started with here or ended with, or?
I think I was at the bottom at the time. That was the first question I asked.
Right,
answered.
Which was the question? Then I'll go back and.
The question was, can you view 12 months at a time in the P&L?
Okay, all right. Well, then we'll come back and then just go back from here, and I'll just read them off here for you. If that'll just make it easier, and then you can
go
from there. So, all right. I got a question here from John. Is this available in the UK?
So yeah, if you're watching this in the future, it's beginning of December right now. They're working on it right now. I want to say we'll have it by the end of December 2016. So it's not available as of today, but the developers are currently working on it, so it shouldn't be too much longer. Okay, good.
Bill's got a question. Says, does it track variations? I presume he's talking parent-child relationships.
Yes, it does. So it displays that neatly in your product breakdown here, and then you can just kind of look at the differences between them, and then you can also see how, like if you go to the profitability page or the sales page, you can see like how they compare for any particular time frame.
Okay, Barbie's got a question. Would we use this in place of something like QuickBooks?
Good question. So if you have like other things going on in your business, then this might not be a replacement for QuickBooks. I think if if you just have your Amazon business inside of your business and you use the accrual method of accounting, which I think is actually required for like a certain threshold. I'm not real up to date on my tax laws, but if that's the case, then you could probably print off this P&L and hand it to your accountant and have him do your taxes. Mark, you might know more about taxes than I do. What are your
Yeah, I
thoughts
mean,
on
I'm
that?
just looking at this, and based on as long as you enter all of your things in the column to where you are entering the different expenses, as long as you're tracking all of your expenses, and I presume you can print this out somewhere or either email a PDF or something. That's all that QuickBooks is doing is measuring what you enter in into each column. So whether you're doing it
Sure.
for your quarterly taxes or your year-end taxes, or I would think your beginning and inventory calculations, all those kind of things, you ought to be able to. I don't see any reason here why you would need to do both.
Yep.
So, again, unless somebody's running a very sophisticated business outside of this or in addition to this, I don't see anything in here that's not included in, because I use QuickBooks for years and to run my other businesses. And this, again, come back to the beauty of simplicity of the Amazon business. You don't have staff. You don't have all these hours you're measuring, and you don't have all that stuff. So this
Right.
calculates everything very simplistically and ideally, I think.
Yeah, I think just to chime onto that, right? If, like I said, if you have like other things going on, like a depreciation of this building, like all this kind of stuff, it's not gonna be able to do all that. But if you just run like a simple Amazon FBA business, I don't think you have any problem just printing off the P&L and handing it to your accountant.
Okay. And this may have been something where you picked up a question about 12 months at a time, but it says Keith's asking, can you view 12 months at a time? I don't know if that meant that was different from entering 12 months or whatever you said of inventories while I faded out there
Yeah,
for a
so
bit.
that's the one I answered. I
Okay.
think he
All
was
right.
asking me in the P&L statement if you
Okay.
could show 12 months.
All
And
right.
yep, you
Let's
can.
move on then. That was asked and answered. BJ says he missed the part about tracking inventory, specifically outside purchases, and does it calculate the cost of inventory on hand?
Um, So this isn't going to be like a sophisticated inventory management. So it doesn't have anywhere to input like if you're storing products in your warehouse and you have this many inbound and that many inbound to Amazon, all that kind of stuff. So it'd be very simple inventory management. Um, let's see, what was the
Well, I
other
would
part?
think if you assign in one of the columns you show where you were assigning the value of the inventory and then it shows how many you have on hand, my guess is somewhere in here you got a calculation to show that I've got X amount of dollars in product A.
Um, let's see. Yeah, it's a really good question. That isn't something that we're currently showing, but that is, I'm glad you recommended that because that's something we could pretty easily
Well, I
add.
was saying
So,
that's one of the things too in the next level of all this, and again, I don't want to go all economics and everything when you hear, but inventory turns and a big part of how you manage your inventory and all this kind of stuff and manage your dollars invested. I mean, again, you start to get in some pretty advanced things there. That's not necessary for most Amazon sellers. However, when I go to my China trips and different things, I'm talking about some of these more advanced things, and inventory management is probably step 3 of how you really make money or not, because people wake up and they have way too much money and they buy too much inventory for their sales velocity. And when
right.
you have those numbers, you can determine, okay, I've got enough inventory to last for, X amount of period based on my sales. So, maybe down the road or something, I don't think you need it for what you're doing, especially as inexpensive as this is. Again, you can also have overkill too. If
Yeah.
you get too much stuff, you shut down. But I understand what BJ's asking, because he actually went to China with me and we were covering that topic at length, because I was just pounding on him about don't keep all your money tied up in inventory. And that's why I think he's asking that question.
Okay.
But it's a good question,
Cool.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Natalie's got a question here. Okay, we kind of just covered that, Natalie. She was asking about, kind of main software kind of thing. Patrick is asking, I guess, are there discounts for multiple apps, Jungle Scout, the other things you do in Fetcher, and all the other stuff?
We don't have anything like that running right now. We try to price them all like pretty inexpensive compared to some of the others, so that yeah, so that they're still affordable.
Yeah, folks.
Maybe in the future we'll try to
Go ahead. I'm
try to
sorry.
do
I
that.
thought you were finished. Go ahead, please.
I'll just say possibly in the future we might try to put them together as a bundle as a % off, but we don't have anything like that running right now. Sorry.
Patrick, this stuff's so cheap. I mean, at a certain point, it's just like a no-brainer. It's not like you're talking the $9,000 I paid 20 some years ago. Yeah. Where do you? Steve is asking what percentage off and where do you do your promos? I guess he's saying there's got to be a section of somewhere where you entered, you gave away a certain amount of units or promos, or is that funded or filled or in the information filled in from Amazon?
Yeah, good question. So I kind of can interpret this two different ways. One's like, how is it put into Fetcher? So in Fetcher, so let me zoom in on this. Looks like that happened about like 6:10. So let's see. Just do this. All right. So in Fetcher, just let this load real quick. All right. So it shows this dark blue color if you do some promotions here. So this looks like I was out of stock for a few days, and then I ran some promotions when I got back in stock. So it shows you that promotion as a unit sold, and then it automatically calculates the price that it's sold for, like the true price, after the discount. Not like Amazon does, that they like credit you, that they consider it the full sales price. Like if you look at your Amazon sales number and you sold one unit that day at 50% off, it was normally $20. Amazon shows you have $20 worth of sales, where it's like, really, you only did $10 worth of revenue because you offered it at 50% off. So we do it, in my opinion, the correct way, the $10 worth of revenue, not the $20. And then he may also be asking, just like in general, what I do like with my promotions now.
Okay.
If so, like when I launch a new product now, like when I launch these few since the TOS changes, I still do like pretty deep discounts, like 60, 70, 80% off, just to get those initial sales for the first few days. So I'll do like 5 a day for like 5 days, maybe 7 days, depending on how long it takes me to like get up the ranks. And then yeah, of course, I use JumpSend to do it because that's one of our other applications. But of course, you can look for other ones as well.
Okay. Keith, I think we may have just gone over this. Says, can you add specific categories for other advertising or dedicated shipping, added costs, etc.? I guess he's probably really asking, folks. It's hard on this end to try and read somebody's kind of question or text sometimes because you want to try and get it right, but sometimes you go off on tangents, I guess. But I guess, Greg, he's asking if you can just add categories as opposed to just individual items for your P&Ls, I guess.
Yeah, I think this is what he's asking. So let's see. What was one of the categories you said?
Advertising, dedicated shipping, etc.
Yeah. We could say like let's say advertising. So now that's a new category. And then I could say like advertising for this particular product. And maybe today I spent an extra $50 on Facebook ads, so I can save that. And then now in your P&L statement, you'll see that advertising shows up in here. Trying to think if I did that right. Anyway, you can do that in your expenses. I'd have to think about it for a second. And then now you have that category. So you can also select that as a category like when you add a new product now.
Right. So I guess answers you can just do that.
I've
never been complicated enough to set things up with categories. I just have my basic line items. But again, if you want to get sophisticated enough to break things up by categories, you can do it.
Cool.
Okay. Directly from Amazon. So Jackie's is asking for clarification. Information is taken directly from Amazon. You don't have to input it yourself. So that's, yeah.
The only thing you have to input yourself is your cost of goods sold. So we don't have any way to find out, like these marshmallow steaks I buy for $2.50. It costs me like $1 a unit to get them from China to the U.S. So I inputted that. Everything, that's the only thing you ever have to input. Everything else is automatically imported from Amazon. So you just set it up once and then it just automatically does it.
All right. Here's an interesting question from Hope. She's got 2 accounts. Will this work on multiple accounts, or does she have to have two different subscriptions?
Good question. So this is another thing they're actually currently working on. So right now you can only do 1 account, but I think I actually saw this up on staging today. So I'd say like within a week, what you can do is you can add a second account, and then you can select like which account you're viewing. So you can either view both accounts combined or each one separately. And that's going to be the same thing if you have like a U.S. account and like a Europe account. So you can have both those into one Fetcher account. So I guess to answer, if you want to sign up today, I'd say just sign up for 1 account, and then the next week or two, you'll have that functionality to be able to add the second one.
Okay. Bubba's got a question on, says, can JumpSend run all of your feedback your feedback things like, I guess that's feedback 5.
Yeah, so JumpSend does the whole email autoresponder series. So yes, it's very similar like that to Feedback 5, that you can set up automated email campaigns. So every time you make a sale, someone gets a series of emails.
Okay.
So to answer your question, yes.
All right. Mary's asking a question here. It says, how do you do, this is, I guess, more, not software, but more launch related, I guess, but Mary's actually been to events and different things before. So it's good for me, Greg. I see all these names of people come to events and things and recognize. So I appreciate everybody who's part of the community adamant about it. But it says, how do you do promotion such as finding an audience to offer to them when launching a product now that we can't do incentivized reviews? Basically, what's your launch strategy? Mary, I think we covered that a little bit earlier when we first came on, but Greg, if you want to touch on that again.
Yeah, so I didn't really want to pitch our product here, but one of our other products is called JumpSend. This is what someone referred to earlier. So you can put your product up on here at a discount, okay? So, this guy has his, whatever this is, some kind of bag for 86% off. This person has a wine rack for 50% off. And then we get about 30,000 visits every day from shoppers on this page, and they'll just request it. So if they want this at 50% off, they'll click this button, they'll get put into a queue, and then you can approve as many of them as you want each day. So this is just a way to get additional sales, and like I said, about 30,000 shoppers a day, so it gets quite a bit of traffic. If you didn't want to use this, some other places are you could you could look in some of the Facebook groups. You could, I'm trying to think, maybe Reddit or something. But yeah, that's what kind of why we invented this deal site. This isn't to get reviews, now it's just to get additional sales. And then with those additional sales, you're going to rank better and then hopefully get organic sales. So something that someone said to me a couple weeks ago, I think he had a good point also, is he just leaves up his products on here for 30% off. And his thing was I spend 30% ACOS on my PPC. So you have a whole bunch of shoppers looking for deals on this site. Why don't I just leave it up there for 30% off? I only get 1 or 2 sales from it a day, but I mean I'm spending the same amount as I would on PPC, and it's just an additional source of sales. So you can kind of keep that in mind too.
Well, that's one strategy too that I've been kind of proposing to people and even doing some testing on, to where whatever your ad cost and your discount is, have that be whatever a break even, because you're still getting the sales velocity and even helping you buy in bigger quantities. So I think we've got to develop the mentality that there's a promotional aspect, and then that all builds up to the profit, the actual profit part that you want. So, I like the JumpSend a lot in that it's an updated version of ReviewKick without the reviews, and with the modernized terms of service, which, the hard thing about, I have my own review group too within our community, and none of us were breaking terms of service, and then no, hey, it's changing this date. It's boom.
Right.
It's just, and then everything's retroactive when you were still following terms of service. So even if you were following it, you weren't following it,
Right.
Frustrating.
Part of playing in Amazon's playground.
I know it. So Patrick again says, so cost outside of purchasing, shipping, and Amazon, how do they show in Fetcher? For example, how would I show my Fetcher cost in Fetcher? Well, Patrick, you just would create a column, a line item for that, and say Fetcher cost. And then some of this you're going to have to enter in manually. But you would just create a line item, correct, Greg?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you just create a line item for anything, and then something that will probably be available this afternoon. So we have 4 developers working on this, so it's exciting because I get to see all these improvements and changes every day. Is something that will probably be available this afternoon, tomorrow, is recurring costs. So I could say I have a software subscription. It's just to my company. It's no particular product. It happens on the first of the month, and then this can be a recurring cost. So every month it automatically inputs that on the first day of each month. Or I think it's also recurring for a weekly or monthly cost. So yeah, that's how you do it.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks for the kind words, Bubba. All right, Patrick, is a recurring cost. That's exactly what he was really asking there anyway. So, folks, we've got probably another minute or two if anyone wants to cram 1 or 2 more questions in, and we'll see if we can address those. If there's a couple here that we didn't get to that I always seem to miss for whatever reason, I'm not trying to do that on purpose. Just email me after the fact, and I'll see if I can try and answer it for you, because some of them were a little bit off topic. So I really thought I'd try and keep them on what we're talking about today, since we had Greg be kind enough to be with us today. So, all right, folks, I want to say I hope, like I said, with anything, um, folks, this is important in running a business. We all get enamored by finding products, and that's certainly important. But the people who are going to separate themselves as this industry evolves are people who run it like real business people. The pioneer stuff, the Wild West stuff is starting to materialize as all emerging markets do. And those of us who manage your business well, those are the people who are going to ultimately prosper. So whether it's this product or something else, I mean, folks, I get hit probably 10, 15 times a week from people wanting me to show software and other things, and very, very few things I let get through. I like the way Greg runs his business. I respect his accomplishments, and I think he puts out good stuff. And if you view Jungle Scout, this is going to be a similar type of thing. So if this is something you think can help your business, go take a look. And Greg, I think we had a trial link somewhere. If you want to maybe show that, then I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, so if you are interested, go to fetcher.com/mark. If you do that, you can get this 31-day free trial. So yeah, it takes about 24 hours to input or import all your information from Amazon. So if you sign up now, you can check back tomorrow about the same time. Then you'll have all the data you can look at. And yeah, if you want to go to that link, you can get the first month free. So
okay,
yeah,
appreciate
thank you very much for having me on.
For that. So, Greg, anything else you want to add to everybody?
I think that's about it. Like I said, thank you very much for having me on. I think you made a great point there, that how the Wild West days are kind of coming to an end on Amazon, and to really move forward and to prosper in the future, we are going to have to watch and manage our businesses a little bit more closely. So hopefully Fetcher can help with that.
Well, I still think there's thousands of products and markets out there, and every time I start to think maybe for a second there's not, I have a coaching call with somebody and they show me the product they found, and I think, man, I'd have never thought of that in 1,000 years. But it's still a combination of things where ultimately the bar is rising, and those of us who are here are the people who understand that, and the people who are gonna rise that bar with the industry and ultimately be successful when all the dust settles. So, Greg, I can't thank you enough for being here, and I appreciate it. I think you got a good product here, and I highly like it and recommend it. So with that said, everybody, appreciate again everybody being here, and hope you have a good day. And thanks again, Greg, for being here. So that's all,
right,
folks.
thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.